The cold metal corridors of Keltonine Station were always quiet. But tonight, they felt too quiet. Jackson Ray stepped off the docking ramp with his heavy tool pack slung across his shoulder. He was a station mechanic sent by Earth Command to fix power grid failures reported here for weeks. He expected flickering lights, maybe broken generators, but not this. This silence. As he passed the commons, his boots echoed loudly. The place should have been filled with chatter, with aliens. Inhumans eating, laughing, arguing. But there were only two old miners drinking in the corner, eyes hollow, staring at nothing. Behind the bar stood a short alien with yellow-green skin and long whiskers. He leaned forward as Jackson approached. "You're the new repairman?" the bartender asked. "Yeah, name's Jackson. Power system's acting up." The bartender grunted. "Worse than that. Lights die when no one's near. Machinery runs backwards, and 3 people gone missing. No trace." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Pirates." The bartender looked past him, lowering his voice. "No, it's her, the widow. She brings bad omens. She talks to ghosts and curses the air." Jackson frowned. "Who?" The bartender nodded toward the far corner of the room. Jackson turned and saw her. She sat alone, wrapped in a long, dark robe that shimmered like oil under the lights. Face was alien, soft lavender skin with faint golden veins glowing beneath, eyes large and amber and blinking. A long braid of silver hair hung over one shoulder. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking, she was whispering to no one. "She lost her mate 6 cycles ago," the bartender continued. "Says he still speaks to her. Says he died because of something in the shadows." "She has a name?" Jackson asked. "Valari," the bartender spat. "But don't say it loud. People here think just hearing her talk makes things worse." Jackson turned away and walked out. He didn't believe in curses. He believed in circuits, wires, and facts. Still, as he walked to his assigned bunk, the whispering stayed in his ears, like cold wind under the skin. Later that evening, he started work. The main generator room stank of burned plastic. Sparks danced from a half-melted control panel. Jackson whistled low and got to fixing. Halfway through realigning the power converters, the lights blinked. He paused. Here we go again. Then something odd happened. Slow tapping sound like metal on metal came from the far wall. Then again, tap, tap, tap. He grabbed his torchlight and shone it across the room. Nothing. Just then, a soft voice spoke behind him. "They're here." Jackson spun around, tool in hand. It was VLR. She stood just outside the generator door, robe brushing the floor. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "You need to leave the station," she said. Jackson sighed. "Look, I'm just here to fix the grid, lady. Don't start with ghost stories." Her golden eyes locked onto his. They come in silence. They feed on memory. This station is not broken, human. It is being drained. He blinked. "Excuse me? They took my mate." "They take anyone who hears them long enough. You've heard them now, haven't you?" She whispered. Jackson hesitated. "You mean the tapping?" She nodded once. "They speak in taps first. Then they crawl into the lights." "You sound crazy," he said, unsure if he believed it himself anymore. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but the dead don't lie." That night, Jackson couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his bunk, eyes flicking to the dim ceiling lights. Then the power cut out. Pitch black. He sat up, heart pounding. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came from inside the wall. Then it moved, slowly across the metal. It circled his room. Like something searching, his hand reached for his. Flashlight clicked. Nothing. Dead. The emergency strip lights flickered red. His breath caught. A shadow moved across the hallway glass, just outside his door, too tall, too thin to be anyone human. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door. He hesitated, stepped forward, and pressed the manual release. The door slid open with a groan, and Valari stood there, eyes glowing. Frost on her robe. "They've already arrived," she said. "You're not safe anymore." Asterisk. The next morning, Jackson didn't speak much. He barely slept. The whispering, the tapping, the glowing eyes of Valari. Was he dreaming? Or worse, believing nonsense? He walked down the corridor toward the main hall access. He needed to check the damage himself. Something or someone was crawling outside the station. There'd be signs. What he found stopped him cold. Deep, wide claw marks stretched across. The station's outer bulkhead cuts to clean, to exact. Not from space debris. Not from a tool. Jackson ran his fingers over them. The metal was torn, not melted, ripped like paper. A security drone floated nearby. He called it over. Scan. This, he ordered. The drone beeped. Material breach. Non-standard pattern. No known match in system logs. He swallowed hard. Just then, static buzzed through his cum. Jackson, are you there? It was Chief Rono, the alien head of station security. His voice shook. Yeah. I'm near Section 14. Get back to the core. Now we found something inside the security hub. The lights flickered. One of the guards looked pale, gray skin almost white. Chief Rono stood near the display monitors. We lost another crew member, Rono said. Lariak, the technician. She went to fix the cum relay 2 hours ago. Never came back, Jackson asked. No signal from her suit? Rono shook his head. Gone. And we found something else. He pointed at the screen. A camera feed showed the hallway outside engineering. Nothing. Seemed off. Until Jackson leaned closer. A dark blur flickered across the lens just for a second. Thin, tall, unnatural. What is that? Jackson asked. We don't know. Frame by frame doesn't help. Pit doesn't move like anything living. Another guard muttered. It's the widow. She's cursed this place. Jackson frowned. You really believe that? The guard turned. Since she came here, things started breaking. People disappearing. Shadows watching. She's not a victim. She's part of it. Jackson didn't respond. Deep down, something didn't feel right. But it wasn't Valari. It was the station itself, like the walls were holding something in, or keeping something out. Later that day, Jackson made a choice. He returned to the lower levels, the cold, dark corners of the station where people never walked. Valari lived in a forgotten chamber beneath the coolant lines. He knocked. The door opened slowly. She stood there, calm as before. Her eyes held no fear. I saw the scratches, he said. They're real. Just like the tapping. Valari nodded. You believe me now? I don't know what to believe, but I want answers. She motioned him inside. Her room was lit only by a blue lantern. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls in white powder. They glowed faintly like alive. What are those? Wards, she said, from my people. They hold back the veil. The veil. She looked him dead in the eye. The shroud. Erase not a flesh or machine. They move through darkness. They erase not just people but truth itself. Jackson laughed nervously. That sounds like a horror story. She stepped closer. It is one we lived. My mate was a soldier. He fought them. He died screaming words I can't remember, 'cause they took them. He fell silent, then asked softly, Why you? 'Cause I remember. And they hate memory. Suddenly the lights above sparked and went black. Then came the tap. Tap, tap, tap. It echoed through the walls like claws dancing over bones. Verlay, awry. Didn't flinch. Do not speak. Do not think of fear. Jackson stood frozen as a sound barely audible whispered through the pipes. A word. His name. Jackson, he stepped back. That's not possible. They know you now, she said. They've heard your breath, your voice, your thoughts. A sharp knock hit the door. Then again, the wall groaned as if something heavy leaned against it. Valari quickly began drawing more symbols on the floor with a glowing powder. Jackson backed into a corner. What do they want? She looked up with sad eyes. They feed on minds that question, on hearts that hope. That's why no one listens to me anymore. They made them forget how. The door shuttered again. This time, the metal started to bend. Valari turned to Jackson. You must decide now. Stay and be erased like the rest, or trust me and fight. He looked at her. For the first time, her voice didn't sound mad. It sounded brave. "I trust you," he said. The lights went out. The station's silence had changed. It wasn't the calm kind of silence anymore. It was waiting. Jackson sat in the cramped engineering bay, eyes glued to the scanner he'd built from scraps. A simple frequency detector modified with parts from the maintenance droids and his own wrist. It wasn't official tech, but it was sharp, sensitive, tuned to frequencies no one usually listened to, and it had found. So, Inga, pulsing rhythm, too slow for a beacon, too steady for an error, too alive. He played it again through the filtered speakers, thumb, thumb, thumb. It beat like a heart. Nothing in the station's system should be making that sound. Valari had called it a voice, the shroud. She had whispered in the dark. They do not speak with mouths. They hum. They breathe through the walls. Only those near death can truly hear them. Jackson turned the volume down. He didn't want to be near death. Not yet. The next morning, a meeting was held in the command deck. Commander Sira, a strict, no-nonsense human in a dark blue uniform, stood stiffly at the center. And around her, technicians' guards. And remaining crew sat in tense silence. Jackson leaned against the back wall, arms crossed. He hadn't slept much. Valera's words looped in his head. Commander Sira cleared her throat. "We have now lost 4 crew members. No alarms, no bodies, no breach alerts. This is unacceptable." One of the guards raised a hand. "Ma'am, it's her. The alien widow. She's poisoning minds, turning us against each other." Murmurs followed. Some nodded. "She whispers to herself." Another crewman added, "Draws strange markings. That's not normal." Commander Sira turned to Jackson. "You've interacted with her. Engineer Ray, what's your opinion?" Jackson stood straighter. He wanted to lie. To say Valari was strange. Easier that way. But then he remembered the humming, the scratches, shadows. "I think," he said slowly, "you should listen to her." The room fell silent. Commander Sira narrowed her eyes. "Excuse me. I ran a frequency scan. Found something, off-band signal, deep layer, beneath station noise. Nothing natural, nothing programmed." "You think she's sending it?" Someone scoffed. "No," Jackson replied. "I think she's the only one not ignoring it." Evening, Jackson returned to his bunk. The scanner beeped twice as he entered. Signal stronger now. Not just louder, clearer, he hooked it to the wall. Overlaid it with heat mapping software. A pattern emerged. Not just noise. A grid. Something was moving through the walls. Back and forth in near-perfect lines. A presence with intent. Like patrol. Roots. He switched to audio again. Axon's name. Distorted. Echoing like it was being pulled apart and stitched back together. Followed by silence. Then forget. Shut it off. Hard later, Jackson met Valari again. This time she wasn't alone. She stood near the abandoned observatory windows, staring into the stars like blind eyes. At her feet sat a small device, old, dusty, and alien-made. "You feel them now," she said without turning. "Inside your skull, that itch behind your eyes. That's how it begins." Jackson nodded. "They said I'd start imagining things." "You were right." She knelt beside the alien device. "My mate left this. It records memory, pure memory, not spoken or written. It cannot be erased, unless the body is destroyed." "What's in it?" Jackson asked. His final thoughts? "Before they took him, but it's locked to blood." She offered her hand. "I need yours." He didn't hesitate, cut his palm. She pressed it to the crystal top. It glowed. A voice poured out. Male, calm, whispering in their native tongue. Then, translated by a soft AI, they do not kill, they consume. You forget the names of your own children. You forget your rank, your ship, your purpose. You become blank. And then they wear you like a shell. Jackson's blood ran cold. Valari looked up. This is what no one believes, because they've already started to forget. Suddenly static exploded in the air. The observatory lights burst. Sparks fell like snow. Jackson grabbed Valari and pulled her behind a console. The air felt heavier, thicker like time was slowing, and then he saw it. Something moved outside the glass dome, not walking, gliding, long limbs like smoke. A face that wasn't a face, but shifting light. No mouth, no eyes, just presence. Valerie whispered, "Don't move." It doesn't see shapes. It sees thoughts. The thing stopped. Right at the glass. It leaned close to close end of the window. Frosted where it neared. Jackson's heart thundered in his chest. Suddenly crack. A tiny fracture split across the glass. The thing jerked back and vanished into the blackness. Jackson and Valari didn't speak for a long time that night. Back in his room, Jackson checked the scanner. No signal. Nothing. He rewound the saved frequencies, and they were gone. All erased. Even the files from earlier that day. Only one thing remained. A whisper. Tina on loop. Don't listen, asterisk. The lights no longer stayed on for more than a few seconds. Every hallway on Keltonine flickered. Like a dying candle, and it wasn't just the light. It was the air. It felt wrong. Thick. Slow. Like the station was breathing against its own will. Jackson stood at the main elevator shaft. Waiting. The panel said it was arriving, but it never did. He pressed again. Nothing. Then came the tapping. Soft from behind. The wall tap, tap, tap. But this time it wasn't moving. This time it was listening. He took a step back. That's when the panel screen flashed once. Just long enough for a message to appear. You are inside it. He ran, not far but fast. Enough to get to the lower decks where power surges hadn't reached yet. These levels were abandoned. Dust floated in the air, and old crates lined the halls like forgotten memories. Valari was there. Waiting, she was marking the walls with glowing blue powder, whispering words in a language Jackson didn't recognize. Her robe moved like mist, her hands steady. What is this place? He asked, catching his breath. Below the sensor grid? The walls here are thicker, older, not rebuilt like the rest. That's why they don't hear me down here. She turned, golden eyes bright. The shroud. They've already infected the station's systems. They're rewriting reality, bit by bit. Jackson laughed, but it cracked halfway out. You're telling me the station is part of them now? She didn't smile. I'm telling you, it's becoming them. Back in engineering, a technician named Boro was doing repairs when the wall behind him shifted. Just slightly. Barely visible. But then a pipe moved without sound. Then another. His scanner glitched. His suit HUD turned black. Boro froze. From the corner of his eye, something peeled away from the wall figure. It's made of wires and black fog. He opened his mouth to scream. He never made a sound. By the time security arrived, the only thing left was his ID tag, half melted and still warm. Jackson watched the report from Valari's hideout. He leaned over a busted console, playing the footage over and over. The cameras didn't show the figure. Only borrow 1 second. Standing next second. Gone. I don't get it, he whispered. Why don't they show up? The footage just skips. Valari stepped beside him. 'Cause they do not live in time the way we do. Our cameras record motion. They are motion. It doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to, she said softly. Then she handed him something. An old helmet. Her mate's. Jackson turned it over. Inside, scratched by claws, were 7 symbols, familiar shapes. He'd seen them on the walls. Valari marked, their protection? He asked. Not protection, she said. Memory locks. To hold yourself in place when they try to erase you. He stared at her. And if I forget the symbols? Then, you forget who you are, what you saw, why you came. Upstairs, things worsened. The AI began speaking gibberish over the intercom. Crew members heard voices calling from inside the vents, voices that sounded like loved ones long dead. One man opened an airlock. Said his daughter was outside, waving to him. She'd died 6 years ago. He didn't survive the vacuum. The commander ordered full lockdown, but the doors stopped responding. Some opened on their own. Others closed with no warning. Keltonine was no longer a station. It was a trap. Jackson stayed with Valari. They used battery-powered lanterns, refusing to rely on flickering wall lights. She showed him a map her mate had drawn, handmade lines over layers of circuitry. He realized something terrifying. Their path, it's not random. No, Valari said. They're circling something, nesting, preparing. Jackson's voice dropped. What's in the center? Da-da-da-da-da. She pointed to the heart of the station. The life support cord. Suddenly, the floor groaned. Lights blinked. Valerius' wards dimmed. Then a scream far, but echoing and wrong. It was a scream with no breath, like a memory of someone screaming. They looked at each other. Go, Valari said. You need to see it for yourself. Jackson made his way through the vents, avoiding the open halls. The walls whispered now. Sometimes his name. Sometimes other names he almost remembered, but didn't recognize. He passed a mirror. His reflection blinked before he did. He didn't look again. When he reached the life support core, he nearly turned back. The room was wrapped in black veins, organic, pulsing and humming with the same signal he'd once recorded. The control panels floated, disconnected from the wall. In the center stood a figure. It had his face, but it wasn't him. It smiled and whispered, "You've already forgotten, haven't you?" There was something wrong with the stars. Jackson stood in the central observatory, staring out at the galaxy. But the constellations were twisted. One had a missing point. Another was flickering like a dying pixel. No one else noticed. When he asked a passing officer about it, the man blinked slowly and replied, "Stars don't change, Ray. You need rest." But Jackson wasn't tired. He was awake that morning. He woke up to alarms. Red lights flashed down every corridor of Keltonine. Not the soft warning pulses, these were shrill and desperate. Containment breach in life support. Level 0 lockdown. Initiated. Structural anomalies detected. He bolted from his bunk, pulling on his gear. The hallway outside was chaos, doors frozen, crew yelling over static-filled comms, and the emergency lifts locked halfway between levels. He forced the manual override and slid down the shaft ladder. By the time he reached the core hallway, 4 crew members had already vanished. Only their clothes remained neatly folded, as if they were never people, just memories. Valari found him kneeling beside the abandoned uniforms. Her voice was calm but heavy. "It's starting," he stood. "What is?" She held up her fingers. 4 glowing threads floated between them, almost invisible. Each soul leaves an echo. But these are silent. The shroud didn't just erase them, it rewrote them. Jackson's heart pounded. "How do we stop this?" "You don't stop infection," she said. "You survive it. You don't let it reach the stars." The breach area was locked off, but Jackson had engineering access. He entered through an old supply crawl space. The path was dark, the metal warm, and the air thick like syrup. As he crawled forward, he heard something. Not footsteps, not breathing. A voice, soft inside his mind.
"Ray Dot, why are you running?" He froze.
That voice said,
Was his brother's, except
his brother had died on a mining rig 10 years ago. "Not real," Jackson whispered. "Not real? You left me to burn? ... remember?" He pressed forward, hands shaking. The voice faded, then came back sharper. "You're just like the others, full of guilt. That's why we chose you." His fingers trembled, but he pushed. Until he reached the chamber. The life support core had transformed. The walls were no longer smooth steel, they were pulsing. Breathing. Black veins ran like roots through the panels. Lights floated in midair, flickering like dying stars. The oxygen regulator had merged with something organic. At the center stood a figure dash again. It looked like Commander Syrah, but her eyes were pure black, and her voice echoed with static. "You were warned," said Jackson, stepped back. "You don't belong here." The creature's skin rippled and its face shifted. Now it was his mother, then his friend, then... "Valari, you belong to us," it whispered. He turned and ran. When he returned to Valari, his skin felt cold, like the air had clung to him. She didn't ask what he saw. She knew. "You were touched." she said. You need to anchor yourself. He shook his head. They wore her face. Everyone's face. Even mine. Valari placed her palm over his heart. Then you need to remember the one thing they can't. Erase. What's that purpose? That night, Valari took him to the old drone bay. Most of the station had stopped functioning, but she had stored something long ago, her mate's personal recorder, modified with a strange alien crystal. This is the last image he recorded before the shroud took him. She activated the device. A 3D projection formed static at first, then a clear image. It showed a mass of floating, glowing eyes, too many to count.
Ow.
Between them, hundreds of bodies floated, crew, soldiers, citizens, all staring ahead, mouths open, unmoving. But it wasn't space. It was inside something. The shroud was not a race. It was a living place. Suddenly, the drone bay door slammed shut. Lights exploded overhead. Jackson turned, grabbing Valera's arm. A whisper filled the room. Not in words, but in thoughts. She is the doorway. She lets you see. Remove her, and you will be safe again. Jackson's eyes went wide. Valari looked at him, tears shining. They always try to turn the listener. He tightened his grip, and we turned louder. The station AI crackled through the speakers, its voice broken and bent. No breach, no threat, no memory. Oh, Valari. The logs began rewriting live. In front of them, her name disappeared. So did Jackson's arrival. The AI said, Keltonine. I've been empty for 12 months. Valari's voice was soft. We are being forgotten in real time. Jackson nodded. Then it's time we made noise. They can't. Erase. Asterisk, there was no time anymore. Jackson couldn't tell if it was morning or night. The clocks were frozen. Some ticked backward. Some glitched, blinking the same second again and again, like the station was stuck in a breath it couldn't release, and every breath Jackson took felt borrowed in the silence of the old. Cargo hold deep in the belly of Kelton, and Valare drew a final symbol on the wall with glowing dust. Her hands moved with practice rhythm, her expression calm. Are you ready? She asked. Jackson wiped sweat from his forehead. For what? To step inside their nest. They descended into the deepest deck, a place no map showed anymore. The door was sealed. Rusted, forgotten by both machines and memory, but Valera's fingerprints unlocked it. As it hissed open, a wave of cold air swept past them. Not mechanical cold, memory cold, the kind that chills your childhood. That buries birthdays. That numbs your name. The chamber beyond was shaped like a perfect sphere, smooth metal walls stretching into shadow, as if the room had no end. In the center floated a black mass, pulsing slow like a heart trapped between worlds. It wasn't physical. It was thought. Memory, grief, rage, grushed into one trembling shape. Valari whispered, "This is where my mate died," where his mind broke. As Jackson stepped closer, his head rang. Suddenly he was standing on Earth. No, not quite. It looked like Earth, but the sky flickered. His childhood home stood before him, but the colors were wrong. His mother waved. From the porch, smiling wide, too wide. She spoke, but no sound came. Behind her, a second figure emerged. Himself, older, eyes empty. Holding a knife, Jackson stumbled back. He blinked and he was in the chamber again, breathing hard. There. Showing you fragments, Valari said. Pieces of you they've stolen, testing what's left. Jackson gritted his teeth. Then let's show them I remember everything. Valari reached into her cloak and pulled out a smooth obsidian cube, the core of her mate's mind recorder. We plug this into their signal. We let his final memory infect them. Jackson stared. You're turning memory into a weapon. Yes. And only a human can deliver it. Why? She looked at him, sad but proud. Because humans still carry guilt. The shroud cannot feed on it. They moved toward the center. The black mass stirred. It spoke not with sound, but with pressure in their skulls. We were silence. You gave us form, you made us real. Jackson growled. I know what you are. No, you only know fear. The chamber shook. Walls cracked. The lights turned inside out, flickering in reverse. Suddenly, Jackson wasn't there anymore. He was standing on Keltonine again. Alone. Clean. Perfect. The halls were new. Everyone was smiling. Valera was gone. Commander Sierra greeted him. "You've done excellent work. Time to go home." Jackson felt a strange peace. He stepped forward 1 foot from the ship's ramp. Then he saw something in the reflection of the docking. Glass himself. Blank eyes. No scar, no memory. He froze. He remembered Lair. He remembered the whispers. He screamed, "This isn't real!" The illusion shattered like glass. Jackson crashed back into the black chamber. Valera, clutching his arm. "You almost became them," she said. "I almost forgot you," he whispered. She handed him the obsidian cube. "Now give them something to remember." He stepped into the center. The black mass opened like a wound. Inside was 1,000 voices crying in silence. Names, dreams, promises all falling like ash. He placed the cube into the floating core. It clicked, and the screaming began. But it wasn't human screaming. It was the shroud. They trembled as the memory inside the cube spilled into them. Valari's mate, dying but defiant, holding on to the truth of who he was. A soldier, a husband, a protector. The shroud reeled. They weren't built for pain that meant something. They began to crack, not physically, but across their presence. A tear opened. Space folded wrong. The stars outside the station blinked off and on. Valari grabbed Jackson's hand. "They're trying to escape into you." "Then let's close the door." He activated the pulse. The cube glowed -white -hot, and the chamber exploded in silence. When Jackson awoke, he was alone. No voices, no pulsing walls, just KELTA-9. Still, he stumbled into the hall. No bodies, no folded, clothes, just quiet. He activated the terminal. Only one file existed. A voice recording. Valeri's voice. "You chose to remember, so you survived. But they're not gone. Only sleeping, waiting to be called again by the next mind, too afraid to face its truth." Jackson closed the file. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He walked to the main control room and began sending a message to Earth, to everyone, because forgetting was what they wanted, and he would never forget her. The transmission log blinked. Message: unsent recipients. All Earth relay stations. Attached file. Valari_last_witness. Rec Jackson stared at the screen in the control room of Keltonine. His fingers hovered over the send button, but they didn't move. The station was quiet now, not the dangerous quiet of before, and the shadows listened. This was true silence. Heavy, honest, like a grave. He played the audio file one last time. "If you're hearing this, then you remember. It means they failed." Valeri's voice was softer now, not a whisper of warning, but of peace. "I gave you what they could not touch, truth. That's why they hated me." Jackson rose from the console. He was the only living soul on Keltonine. Everyone else had vanished, some maybe long before he even arrived. The crew, the commander, even the bartender with yellow skin and tired eyes. Were they real? Had they ever been? The station logs were empty, except for one folder corrupted and misnamed. When he opened it, he found footage. Old, grainy, it showed. Valari sitting alone in the commons, whispering to herself. Behind her. Figures passed by, hundreds of them, but none ever looked at her. None ever heard her. Not until him. He went to her chamber. One last time, it was still there, just as she'd left it. Symbols marked the walls, faded now. The glowing blue dust had dimmed. Her shawl hung neatly over a broken chair. He touched it, still warm. Jackson sat down, staring at the strange drawings. He tried to speak her name aloud. Nothing came out, not. At first, he closed his eyes. Focus, then whispered Valari. And suddenly he remembered. A rush of color filled his mind. Her eyes golden and full of sadness. Her voice firm, brave, kind. The tap of her fingers against the metal floor. The way she had shielded him in the dark, even when she was terrified. Herself, she had never asked for thanks, only that he remembered Jackson stood. He activated a manual beacon, the oldest kind. It's not connected to station systems. The shroud couldn't erase analog tech. He began broadcasting. Not just a warning, a story. He spoke into the mic. Log entry. Alta 9. My name is Jackson Ray, human engineer. I came to fix broken systems and found a station broken by memory. They told me not to listen to her. They said she was mad. A widow whispering nonsense. She wasn't. She was the only one left who remembered the truth. He paused. The silence hummed around him, but he was not afraid. She said the shroud come when we bury pain, when we let go of our memories too easily, when we forget who we are. Saw them. I heard them. I fought them, and I lived, because I refused to forget her. The recording ended. He sent it. The signal stretched across space through dead relays, fractured satellites, and forgotten stations. Maybe someone would hear it, maybe not. But it was out there now, and the shroud hated what could not be taken back. As Jackson powered down the console, something flickered in the glass reflection. A figure. He turned sharply. No one there, but a single blue handprint had appeared on the doorway. Small, delicate, V-E-L-A-R-I. Single quotes is he left Keltonine in a small shuttle. Right. Driven by old code and manual navigation, station faded behind him, its twisted walls once again still, stars unfolded around him, quiet and cold, but he didn't feel alone. As he drifted into hyperspace, he closed his eyes and whispered her name again, just to make sure it stayed real. Valari. Days later, light years away, deep space. Signal caught the edge of a listening post orbiting Mars. A young communications officer picked it up, confused by the old frequency. He played it. He heard Jackson's voice. He heard her name. And though he didn't know why, tears filled his eyes. That night, that officer dreamed of a woman with glowing eyes and silver hair who whispered, "Thank you for remembering."